Thank you for watching ECSO News on Blab TV. I'm Amber Southard.
And I'm Allison Morgan. We want to start out this ECSO News episode by wishing you a happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. And you stole a little piece of my heart, Sky's Pizza, on National Pizza Day. Thank you so much for donating 6 large pies here at the ECSO. I can assure you it didn't last long. You actually put the pep in pepperoni. Yeah, I went there.
So cheesy. I loved it though.
And a big thank you to Kevin Mann from Campfire Gulfwind. The Campfire kiddos made these homemade valentines that decorate our news desk tonight for the show and to show support for the deputies. So thank you kids so much for making these. Everybody really appreciated them.
Thank you to those of you who came out to our Coffee with a Cop event at Whataburger. ECSO deputies enjoyed seeing some new and familiar faces. Whataburger on Pensacola Boulevard generously provided coffee and goodies for those who attended the event earlier this month. We have another event brewing. We'll keep you updated on ECSO News.
And Operation Clean Sweep will get underway near Perdido Key on Thursday. Operation Clean Sweep will begin at 8 a.m. The ECSO, along with our volunteers, will be meeting at Holy Spirit Catholic Church on Gulf Beach Highway. Operation Clean Sweep lasts until noon. We are learning just how successful our Clean Sweep last month was. The stats are in from the Clean Sweep in Carriage Hills. Here they are. The ECSO made 2 arrests, 1 warrant was served, 3.29 tons of debris was removed from the area, and 1 car was seized. Thank you to the 2 civilian volunteers and 8 military volunteers. And as always, thank you to our mounted posse for taking part.
We want you to join our team. Are you looking for a job or know someone who is? The ECSO recruitment team wants to meet you. Our recruiters have been out and about keeping the community informed of jobs available at the ECSO. Catch up with them at UWF Next. They'll be at the Spring Career Showcase from 1 to 4 on March 1st at UWF's College of Business. And on March 2nd, we'll have a booth set up at Pensacola Christian College. The ECSO will be at the event from 1:30 to 6 p.m. Follow our Facebook events to keep up with our recruitment team.
This week's missing persons are: Parker is a habitual runaway and has an active warrant for violation of probation. Date of birth 10/20/2003, was last seen on February 2nd, 2017. Our next missing person is Palinthio Isaac Ray, date of birth 5/27/2001, last seen February 6, 2017. This missing person is also a habitual runaway. If you've seen any of these missing persons or know their whereabouts, please contact Crime Stoppers at 433-STOP or the Escambia County Sheriff's Office at 436-9620.
And it's a new way for law enforcement officers to mentor children in our area. Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Northwest Florida have started recruiting for their program, Bigs and Badges. The announcement was made last month at Pensacola City Hall. Mayor Ashton Hayward announced the program would partner with the Pensacola Police Department and the Escambia County Sheriff's Office.
Pensacola, don't ever think for a second, just because of our size, that we're not leading, because our town is leading on so many fronts when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to first responders, when it comes to pension reform, when it comes to Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Those are the things that we're doing in a big way across our great state of Florida and across the country.
Do you want to learn more about different departments here at the ECSO? Our Citizens Law Enforcement Academy started last month. It's a 12-week-long course that meets every Thursday night right here at the Sheriff's Office.
If you're going to find out some things about law enforcement that you probably did not know, things that you see on TV that you think, well, that's what they do or they don't do. So a lot of this is going to be an eye-opener for you, and that's the whole point, is to get you familiar with what it is that we do, and hopefully in many instances why we do it a particular way.
After a week on the run, William Boyette and Mary Rice were located in a motel in West Point, Georgia. Rice surrendered and Boyette ended his own life in the motel room before officers entered. The state attorney's office quickly began working on charges against Rice, charging her with first-degree murder in the death of Kayla Crocker.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan. I want to take just a brief moment to say thank you to the citizens of Escambia County, Santa Rosa, and Baldwin County in Alabama, to all the local, state, and federal agencies that participated in the successful resolution of the Boyette Rice case. Our heartfelt sympathies and prayers for the 4 grieving families in our community. While there will be some degree of normalcy over the next few days when we all return to our normal work schedules and try to rearrange our lives to some semblance of normalcy. We are painfully aware that the families that suffered through this tragedy in our counties, in our 2 states, will have no return to normalcy at any time. But I want to thank the citizens of all of these counties and all of these states for your outpouring of information and support over the last several days, and your information was critical in the eventual capture of Boyette and Rice. And so to that, from the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, we say thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for remaining vigilant. Thank you for your calls. Thank you for your prayers for the young men and women at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office who were out on patrol every day doing the best that they could do to bring this to the resolution that we have today. Our thanks to the law enforcement officers who participated in Georgia. We also thank God that all of those people will go home safe tonight. So from Escambia County Sheriff's Office, again, I'm Sheriff David Morgan. Thank you so much, Escambia County. Once again, you stepped up to the plate, hit the ball out of the park. I could not be prouder than to be your sheriff as I am today. Thank you.
But there was still a lot of questions about the tip that led to her arrest.
I'm Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan. We've had some inquiries, requests, if you will, from our community about our Crime Stopper program. And I say our Crime Stopper program because it's a community program. However, most people are unaware that this program is administered through our Attorney General for the state of Florida, as it is in all other states. And of course, in our case, it's Attorney General Pam Bondi. They have the overall review and cognizance of the Crime Stoppers program. That filters down from the state level to each individual jurisdiction. We'll use Escambia County as our example. We, of course, have one at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. We have a Crime Stoppers coordinator, as does the Pensacola Police Department, and each and every other law enforcement jurisdiction throughout the state of Florida that participates in Crime Stoppers. Now, as a result of that, we are not the final say as to who receives awards or the amount of rewards that are eventually given out. While we review those and make recommendations, that final determination based upon the fund at the state level also, again, assist them in determining how much should be given to each individual. The primary questions, of course, are a fallout as a result of our Boyette and Rice case, which has been not only in our local news but in the national news. For those of you that don't know, Mr. Boyette and Ms. Rice were accused of, 4 murders, spanning several jurisdictions: Santa Rosa, Escambia County, Florida, and also into Baldwin County in Alabama. Now, as a result of that, as you can well imagine, we received a lot of tips, and it will take a considerable amount of time to filter through those tips and make the appropriate awards to the individuals that assisted law enforcement in the eventual capture of Miss Rice. And again, Mr. Boyette took his own life while barricaded inside a hotel room in a small town in Georgia. So again, we ask for your patience. Again, those recommendations come from citizens and, of course, the boards that meet, but the final determination is not something that's made at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office nor at the Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office. So again, the Crime Stoppers program is administered through the state down to the local level, but final determination on the awards that are made, again, rests with them, dependent upon the size of the fund. We will assure you that our recommendations will always be for those individuals who lend a considerable amount of assistance to local law enforcement in their eventual capture. Again, we beg for your patience, and again, we promise you that we will ensure as best we can that the right thing is accomplished. I'm Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan, and thank you for your time.
And joining us now is Deputy Melanie Peterson. She's our coordinator in Escambia County for Crime Stoppers. So she's going to answer a little more of those unanswered questions that we might have had this past week on that Boyette case. So can you kind of tell us how Crime Stoppers works with anonymity?
Absolutely. There's been a lot of confusion the past couple of weeks about it. Basically, Crime Stoppers is 100% anonymous. I know for a fact in the state of Florida we work off grants. Crime Stoppers is initially funded by non-tax money. When a person is arrested in any county in Florida, but we'll start with Escambia. Anytime someone's arrested in Escambia County, the judges assess a $20 Crime Stopper fine. Those who participate with the program. That money is then collected by the Office of Attorney General yearly. It'll go directly to the OAG's office, and then it gets redistributed to that county's program. When a tip comes in, they're given, of course, I always talk about the tip number. That tip number is then processed. It immediately gets sent to the coordinator. I make sure that tips are sanitized, meaning that no one has entered any identifying marks of who they are, whether it be their name, their address, anything. I want it completely 100% anonymous. Once that tip is received, it's then forwarded to the appropriate unit or law enforcement agency, because we have several that we deal with. Then that law enforcement agency confirms whether that tip led to an arrest. Once we do get a confirmation on a tip, I then have to go back and review, because in Escambia County we have over 300,000 citizens, so we're going to get more than one tip on an individual. But I have to make sure it was the very best tip and the first tip received out of an incredible database full of them. So once we confirm it, then the person takes that tip number, contacts me on Mondays, and at that point I give them a status check. When I let a person know that, yes, you're eligible for a reward, then I give them pickup instructions, and it's always a secondary location. I never see them. They're never to provide their identification. And the biggest disqualifier in our program is providing your name.
Yeah, well, that's
We don't
part
want to
of
know
it.
who you are.
Yeah.
We want you to be free of any reprise or fear of retaliation by anyone, and that is what maintains the integrity of Crime Stoppers.
A question I had was, what is done with the reward money if a tip does not lead to an arrest?
Okay, well, again, as I explained, we do work off of a fiscal budget, and any monies that is not spent throughout the grant year towards rewards, it's immediately rolled over into the following year.
Okay.
So that is completely separate. It just keeps rolling over. But we do, our whole goal is to spend that money on rewards, and like I always say, crime doesn't pay, but we do. So.
And then here in Escambia County, if a tip leads to an arrest, we pay out, especially in this Boyette case. We paid out. We will.
Absolutely. And I do want to remind everybody that it is one tip that gets paid per case. I cannot pay multiple people, but the one disqualifying thing is that it does take time to review those tips. I do have to make sure and have to confirm that specific tip led to an arrest, because we're audited.
Right.
We're audited by the Office of Attorney General at any time at their choosing. So.
And then that's a great kind of opening for what are some of the things that do disqualify you from receiving that award?
Well, definitely, like I'd mentioned, identifying yourself, giving me your name, calling my office line at the sheriff's office and requesting me to call you back. I never do, and I always let them know that on wanted fugitives. I can't call you back. You've already disqualified yourself. Another thing, contacting law enforcement first. You have to contact Crime Stoppers and get that tip number. We actually do the legwork. Our call center is set up that once you call Crime Stoppers and you see someone or you can locate a wanted fugitive that you know of, they contact the law enforcement agency in that area for you. There's very little legwork. And a lot of times people will contact a program and say you lived in Okaloosa County, but you have a tip. You accidentally call my program. I'm going to forward that tip for you. So that tip number, that number that you were given, is going to be forwarded to that agency, and they will collect it. Once an arrest is made in that county, then they'll pay you because they have your tip's already been forwarded. But the main thing is to get that tip number, because you have to go through Crime Stoppers to be eligible for our reward.
And something we were talking about, 911 versus Crime Stoppers, and how instantaneous that tip is forwarded. I mean, I think people are worried, well, I need to call 911 right now, but as soon as they call that Crime Stoppers number, it's already being put in the system.
Yes, once our call takers enter their tip, they're forwarded. There's no need to contact 911, and I'll tell you the biggest reason why. Our tipsters are protected by Florida statute, which means they cannot be subpoenaed for their records. They cannot be identified. But a 911 call, as we all know, is a recorded line. So you're not anonymous. We can trace your call, and that totally goes against the integrity of our program. Our program is for anonymous tips.
But of course, if it is an emergency and you
Absolutely.
need somebody right then, don't call Crime Stoppers, call 911.
Absolutely. And I always tell everybody, you don't have to call us first. A large majority of the tips that we receive are citizens that just want this person of interest, wanted fugitive, homicide suspect, regardless, bank robber, for any reason. A lot of times our tipsters just want to let us know where they're at so that law enforcement can go and pick them up.
That's wonderful.
And they're not interested. So yeah, a lot of times people will just say, I just didn't even worry about it. I don't want the number, but I'm going to contact law enforcement. I'm going to encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
You know, but for those that want that reward with Gulf Coast Crime Stoppers, have to get a tip number. You have to follow the rules.
Right. And there was a little bit of confusion between the Gulf Coast Crime Stoppers and the Emerald Coast Crime Stoppers.
Yes.
Can you talk about the difference between the two programs?
Yes, and we are working on correcting that. Gulf Coast Crime Stoppers is it's a tricky program name because that could, for most of us that have lived here all our lives, that could be all along the Gulf Coast, which could include Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi,
Right.
Mobile. But each county, Emerald Coast is actually Okaloosa County. Santa Rosa Crime Stoppers is, of course, services all the citizens of Santa Rosa. Gulf Coast is strictly for Escambia County citizens, and but each state has their own programs.
Yeah.
But you just cannot worry. Like I said, I get tips from everywhere, all over the U.S., and I forward them. I forward them to the appropriate agency and Crime Stopper programs. So I do all the legwork for them.
So bottom line, as long as you call a Crime Stoppers program, you're fine. Your tip will get forwarded.
Absolutely. Yes, your tip will get forwarded. And a lot of times, you know, people do worry about the lapse in timing, but once that tip is closed out, and I can speak for my call center, other programs, of course, have different ways of doing things, but I know for our program, once our call center closes out that tip, it gets forwarded to me, and I get it pretty much as close as real time as you can get.
Yeah. Can we talk about the ways that you can contact our Crime Stoppers here?
Absolutely. The most common is, of course, 433-STOP. That's our 24-hour-a-day call center. You can also text your tip to Crime Stoppers at 274-637 or crimes. And we also have a webpage. You can go to www.gulfcoastcrimestoppers.org. In the right-hand corner of that page, you can click on Submit a Tip, and it will literally walk you through the process. Or those who have an iOS or an Android device can go into their App Store and upload Tip Submit. So, you know, you have 4 convenient ways. All 4 ways you're going to get that number, and you hang on to that number because that's the key.
Don't lose it. Yes.
Don't lose it, because if you lose it, there's no way for me to tell. Because again, you're 100% anonymous.
Wonderful.
Thank you for joining us and answering some of these questions.
No
I know it's been a
problem.
hot topic the past couple weeks, but we appreciate you being here. And again, if you do have a tip, that number is 433-STOP.
You know, how do we know what to share and what not to share on social media? Thank you for that question. That's an excellent question. And I know it's going to require restraint on your part and everybody who Facebooks. And here's why. Facebook is a social media platform. It's for people to get on and have general discussions, to share complaints, you know, to share family stories and you know, your high school class reunion or whatever it is. It's not, it has no filters for fact. So let me begin with that. As difficult as it will be, remember, when you get on Facebook and speculate, when you say, I think that something happened, I can tell you that after that I think is passed around about 4 or 5 times, it becomes fact. It's not that, you know, I think I may have saw them over here. We get back a report that they were definitively sighted in this area. Now we marshal all of the Sheriff's Office resources and we go charging off to that particular side of the county because we think we may have, again, a sighting of this individual, and so we want to make sure that we get the area surrounded, clear the area of innocent civilians, innocent citizens, and then try to move on in on a particular house or vehicle where they, quote unquote, were last sighted. It turns out it was just somebody thought that they saw them in a particular area. So you got to put on your thinking cap. You've got to decide that, you know, I can become as much of a part of the problem as I am a part of the solution, and you do that by speculation. So think before you text. think before you get on your Facebook and start sharing speculation with everyone. You know, we have so many rampant rumors going around right now, scaring people away from the normal everyday life, such as, you know, our last victim was targeted through Craigslist. We ran that information to ground. There's no validity to that whatsoever. So we looked for a dating site that was over in the Mobile, Daphne area. There was nothing to that either. So again, we're asking you to show a little restraint, you know, practice a little bit of adulthood, and understand something. Facebook is a wonderful platform for you to stay in contact with family and friends. It's not a filtered media outlet, or it's not a filtered sheriff's office outlet. And so when you pass on speculation and it takes root, then it causes us innumerable problems. Verify whether or not it's the truth before you repost or share something. Tiffany asked the question if we can confirm that Mr. Boyette did forced entry into the home on Beulah. Tiffany, that is an intricate part of the case, but I think in this instance I'm probably comfortable in telling you that we know of no forced signs of entry into her home. So yes, unfortunately, it appears as though she did in fact open the door. Lauren asked, could we not do an Amber style alert, you know, to get the, you know, more information out to people? Unfortunately, Lauren, that you are correct. We are not allowed to do that. We do both Amber and Silver alerts. Of course, Silver alerts applies to, you know, those who would be 65 and older. Occasionally, we have folks that are suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's, and the laws and the statutes regulating those notifications are a little less stringent as they are for an Amber alert, but there's a whole host of protocols, as they're referred to, that we have to go through before issuing either one of those, and there isn't a protocol for this. So if you will note, what we did in Escambia County, once we had sufficient information to verify that this was Mr. Boyette and Miss Rice that had committed this crime in Escambia County, we hit every known venue for the media. We went on our Facebook, we went on our webpage, we contacted all the local media. We have 150 neighborhood watches that was put out over our network to all of our neighborhood watch captains throughout Escambia County. In addition to that, we have several very active neighborhood watch groups that also have their own Facebook and web page out on the west side of Florida, out in Beulah, which was the affected area in this case. And so we cast a pretty wide and broad net. We felt very comfortable that people had the information that they needed. And again, we plastered this gentleman's name everywhere. And I would be remiss here if I didn't mention in this particular spot about the wonderful partnership we formed with Lamar Advertising. As you know, they have electronic billboards throughout Escambia County. We, of course, have a contract with Lamar to put out Crime Stoppers information and public service announcements as a whole. When this incident started, Lamar contacted us and offered all of their electronic billboards, not only in the state of Florida, but into Alabama, and also any other reach that they have throughout the United States. If Mr. Boyette and Miss Rice happen to slip through our ring that we have currently in the two-county area, then they've agreed to assist any other law enforcement agency at no charge, I might add, to assist in the capture of Mr. Boyette and Miss Rice. Heather asked about the relationship between Mr. Boyette and some of the victims. We have tied Mr. Boyette to a relationship of some sorts with a couple of the victims, and two of the victims were purely at random, which makes this case, you know, both frightening and difficult to solve because, as you well know, it's hard to predict human nature. But he has had a relationship of sorts with two of the victims. And of course, obviously, Miss Rice, who's with him now, was part of that circle of folks who were involved in the drug culture that's currently, you know, on the lam with him right now. Nikki asked if we can get a shoot-on-site order. Unfortunately, Nikki, no, there really isn't such a thing. Anyone that issues that's an illegal direction or order, and of course you'll never hear that from this sheriff's office or any other sheriff's office, I can tell you, that I'm aware of. While again, he is a fleeing felon, a fleeing violent felon who has murder warrants out for his arrest right now, that is taken into consideration by law enforcement and the state attorney's office and the court system, but there is no such thing as a shoot-on-site order. Well, Josh asked, what's the point of Q&A if we always answer that, you know, we can't release that information? Josh, I would recommend you go back and go to our website and look at the entire interview. You'll find that probably fully 90 to 95% of the questions were in fact asked with information that we have.
There are always certain elements of a case that we hold back, again, that would obviously lend assistance or benefit in some way the two suspects that we're looking for, Boyette and Rice. We must always assume that they're listening or that they're getting the information from someone close to them or, an associate of some kind. And so we do not want to alert them, to what our next move or our next action is. And then in the investigative process, both ourselves and the state attorney get together, and there's certain elements of the crime that they want to hold back. So once we effect the capture of these individuals, then that's further information that will again lead to the arrest warrant and the eventual, hopefully, conviction of these two people. Yeah, someone asked, could you further define, victim in a crime? If you get robbed, you're a victim of a crime. If your car is stolen, you're a victim of a crime. In the instance of Miss Crocker, because again, she's still in critical care in the hospital, to the best of my knowledge, the last information that I received, she was the victim of a home invasion attempted murder. Until such time that Miss Crocker either recovered, well, Miss Crocker will always remain a victim, so let me stop there and say that. She is the victim of a crime. We pray for her recovery. We hope that, again, she's not another victim of a homicide. So you've got to look for the follow-on phrase that follows victim. You are a victim of a robbery. You are a victim of a sexual assault. You are a victim of a homicide. And so victim is an all-encompassing term of someone who has had a crime visited upon them. The question from Diana was who took the picture of them in the woods and how they managed to get away safely. That picture came from one of the citizens in Escambia County. As you know, it's the hunting season right now, and they're called deer cams. And the deer cams are motion actuated. And so what occurred is, one of the hunters got an alert that there had been, activity in that area. Of course, they're set up for, game. They want, of course, to, track the deer, if you will. And so once he pulled the images up, he immediately contacted the sheriff's office and said, hey, I think these are the people that you're looking for. Remember, you can also email your questions and ask the sheriff at escambiaso.com. We'll be back next week right here on Blab TV, Tuesday night at 8 p.m.